You may be asking yourself, why am I watching a video comparing a $100 dynamic microphone to a $400, $500 setup microphone here? What is the difference in quality from a budget option to a pretty professional option? And see if the content you're making will need something more expensive, or can you get it done with something more budget and affordable. Welcome back to the Rebel Tech channel. I'm Justin, and in this video we're going to be doing a comparison between the Shure SM7B and our newcomer, the AT2040 by Audio-Technica. And really seeing if that quality, the higher quality of the Shure SM7B, is that much more compared to a budget option of the AT2040. Now, this concept has gone through my head a lot, and reason why I've done a lot of comparisons, especially to the Shure SM7B. I want you guys to understand that for certain pieces of content, you don't need the very professional microphone. You don't need the high-end microphone. For the most part, you can just go into your content with a $100 microphone, or even the ZDM1, which is sub $100, or there is the Behringer 2020 microphone that maybe one day I'll cover. I'm not really sure, but microphones like that can be passable for content. And that's great. That's awesome, because they are getting use. They are showing that they have a place in this world of content creation at any level. And even if you're at a lower level, you don't need to show off a high-end microphone to stand out. Show what you have in your story and what your content shows in its meat and potatoes, which basically is your content, the content of the content creation. So without any further ado, let's get into the builds of these two. I gotta say, these are two of the most well-built microphones I've ever experienced using. So with this, let's start off with the AT2040. Very well built, nice construction, has a great structure to it, meaning that you feel it and you actually feel like you're getting something substantial. With the grill being very sturdy, a very important thing for a lot of people, and has some enforcement with some foam, it's okay. You'll see in the booth how well it performs on its own, and you might need something extra. But the major thing, you might think, oh, the hypercardioid is the major thing. No, the major thing is the rubber bushing around the diaphragm that kind of gives it a little more insulation when it comes to handling noise and reverberations around the microphone. I really don't have to say much about the Shure SM7B. I mean, everyone knows it. Everyone knows how great it is, how well built it is. The full yoke mount XLR cable outside of the microphone itself, the actual housing, which I admit I was a little bit about when I first got it and when I was researching it. But now I can't imagine having a microphone like this any other way. Of course, shotgun microphones, pencil condenser microphones, and a lot of condensers, I want them that way. But as far as microphones that I'm going to be handling, I prefer having the XLR cable separate. Just my personal preference, and I don't really see any other microphones doing it, so maybe it's just a unique thing for this. If you know any other microphones that have a separate XLR port, meaning it's separate from the body itself, let me know down in the comments. We can talk about it. So everyone knows the grill is really well made, has just awesome rejection of noise. And speaking of that, let's do the rejection of noise, and I'll just tap some of the parts of this stand and everything. So, quick release. The shock mount itself, and the body. Over here, quick release, the yoke mount, and the body. So there's your example of how they handle it. Of course, there's a lot more you can do with it, with handling it on a boom arm. And depending on the boom arm that you have will determine more noise or less noise. If you have something like a PSA-1 or a Blue Compass, those are pretty sturdy and they do reject noise pretty well. So keep in mind of what you're using. If you're using something with springs, maybe not. Depends on how well the springs are made. Now that's all I have to say about the builds. I will give an edge to the Shure SM7B because I really love this construction, and I feel that it's a little more well built. And I say a little because the AT2040 is really amazing with its build quality. And when they compare to each other, I give a edge to the Shure SM7B. But maybe that could be a bias. Let me know down in the comments if you have one or maybe even both of these, what you think. So the next thing we're going to do is get into some techie talk about the innards, the specs, everything that goes into it. I'll leave you a graphic and I'll talk about the things that stand out afterwards. So the first thing that stands out with this comparison is the hypercardioid polar pattern compared to the cardioid polar pattern here. And everyone knows, you should know if you're watching a microphone review, hypercardioid's a little more honed in and has some sweet spots here that reject noise very well, and then has a little bit of pickup on the back. I'm noticing with the AT2040 in the tests that I've done that it does have a nice rejection in the back and does not have that much pickup. Let's go around, just a little quick test. I'm going to do a off-axis rejection in this room and the untreated room, but let's do a quick one. So if I go around to the left side of the microphone, this is what you're going to hear around 90 degrees right here, going into the sweet spot right about there, and then working our way back to the front. And this is what you're going to hear going around to the right side. Well, that'd be stage right technically. And this is what you're going to hear, roughly what you're going to hear with less than a foot away. Now on the Shure SM7B side, we have a cardioid, which is more inflated and rejects the sides and the back. A little bit more in the back than the sides, but you get the point. So if we go around, this is going to be the off-axis rejection, very close, less than a foot away. And this is what you're going to hear coming back to the front and going around to the front here. This is what it's going to sound like that. Now the next thing that stands out is their sensitivity, and we have -53 and -59. That 6 decibel difference could be crucial when it comes to using gear, especially stuff and preamps, especially that have not a lot of gain that's offered. About now, they're recording roughly at the same level. I try to get them roughly in that same level between like -6 and -12 roughly. That's where you should try to get your audio. Gives you a nice headroom and a decent floor there. But for the most part, if you're right around 12, maybe 12 to 18, you should be good. You bring it back to life a little bit. And I'm recording it to a 32-bit float file, so that really makes things a lot easier. Now to start off with the frequency responses, 80 Hz to 16 kilohertz on the AT2040 and 50 Hz to 20 kilohertz on the Shure SM7B. This one is just, I've said it before, I'm going to say it one more time, it's a little off-putting. 80 Hertz is a little high for a cutoff naturally to a microphone. And if you look at the chart, you notice that it goes to 20, but the significant tones are certainly from 80 and higher, and up to 16. But that high end, I really like the tone. So starting with the low end, you have a cutoff, essentially, 100, starting from 100, going down to 80. It's pretty much it. It goes down further, but they're really insignificant. We move on to the Shure SM7B, which has 2 options for your low end. Naturally, has a nice roll off there, starting at around 100 and going down to 50. That's probably as much as I would have it. And it really is nice with the low end. I really like the low end naturally. And if you've been here before, you know I like the Shure SM7B on my voice, at least with just a natural curve. If you engage the low cutoff, it's very aggressive. It starts off at around like 300 and then really dips off and it's just gonzo. But depending on the source and depending on what you're doing will determine if you're going to engage that or not. So as far as the lows are concerned, I give an edge to the Shure SM7B, mostly because of its natural curve being more appealing to me and also gives you the option for the low cutoff. Moving on to the mids, we have the AT2040 with a fairly flat midsection from about like 200 to about 1K, and it has a dip there to scoop out some of the mids and scoop out some of the muddiness. Now, muddiness really is determined by the person and the source. If your voice is a little more higher, maybe those tones aren't as emphasized and you don't have that muddiness. If your voice is like mine and it's in the low mids and lows, it could be good. You guys let me know what you think. As far as me and my voice into the AT2040, I'm not really sure. The mids I like, but because those lows are cut so much, it emphasizes them a little bit more, which is a little off-putting. But on a chart, I really like it. Moving on to the Shure SM7B in that same range, right around like the 200 to 1000. The natural curve is a slight increase and then starts to flatten out as we move into the highs. The highs, it starts to get flat and goes flat until 4K. So your flatness really does last a lot longer, and that's the reason why I don't like the mid boost on this. Speaking of the mid boost, it's called a mid boost, but it's like a mid to mid high boost, and really to highs. It's just mid and everything higher boost. So what you notice here starts to rise up at around 700 and then gives you some peaks and valleys here and there as you move along. I'm not going to point out the specifics. You could see it here in the chart. But it's giving you at most, I don't know, 4 decibels of increase at its peaks and an average of like 2 to 3 overall. So it's one of those things that, depending on the source, it will determine if you engage it or not. And you got to play around with it. And as far as the mids are concerned, I will give an edge to the Shure SM7B as well. And moving into the high end, just to keep it simple, I do like the AT2040s a little bit better because it's not as bonkers going on there. You see it's like crazy tuned over there. And on a chart, of course, not necessarily how it sounds naturally, but I mean audibly, not chartily, or visually, I should say. Chartily, that should be a word. I could be confused with chartily. That's where my mind goes. So if you're paying attention, the Shure SM7B on a chart, I do prefer it a little bit better. Alright, so the things that I noticed in the background could be the fan on the laptop and the dehumidifier in the other room. I did boost it in post, so just keep that in mind that it is boosted more than normal. So throughout this video, I've been talking about 2 to 3 inches away from the microphones. Pretty traditional and pretty standard for a dynamic microphone, especially a broadcast microphone that you're trying to get that broadcast sound. By getting closer and the proximity effect, you will get that sound, or get similar sounds to that. Alright, so I'm about 2-3 feet away from the fronts of the microphones. They're cocked a little to the side, but at this point it really doesn't matter too much. Rectangular room, mildly treated, not too crazy. I've tried a couple of things here and there, and I've added a little bit, so it could be a little bit better. But let me know what you think about the rejection noise in front. Let's do the 90s. Now on the 90 degrees on the stage left side, AT2040 side, this is going to be your off-axis rejection of noise. And remember, hypercardioid and cardioid here, so keep that in mind when you're listening to see if you notice a big difference. Now in the sweet spot, around 120 to 150 degrees, this always depends on the type of microphone, so I give you that range roughly. And I move back and forth just a little bit here and there just to give a good example of what you're going to hear in this sweet spot. Now on stage right on the Shure SM7B side, the 90-degree test, this is what it's going to sound like in the studio right here, mildly treated room. Now let's go into the sweet spot about 120 to 150 degrees. This is what it's going to sound like with your off-axis rejection. Lastly, this is our 180-degree test between the Shure SM7B and the AT2040. Cardioid, hypercardioid. Let me know what you think if there's any more pickup on the 2040 than the Shure SM7B, or is it better? Is it worse? Let me know what you think. Alright, so we're in the booth right now, and we have the AT2040 and the Shure SM7B ready to go, and this AT2040, I hear it differently every single time I listen to it. It's one of those things that it's really annoying to pinpoint how this microphone performs, and with my voice, I do not like it. I am not a fan of it, and I could see where there are applications for it. I could see where people that have a different tone of voice, maybe even a higher tone of voice, could lend well to this their voice and this microphone can blend well together. They could do well together. So let's do a proximity effect right now. And this is how it's going to sound with me a lot closer. It gives you that kind of rumbly sound, but not rumbly in like the annoying way, because obviously it can't. They took it away, which is fine. It's just a little annoying how they did that. And now if we do the same thing on the Shure SM7B, you notice that you have, and here's the thing, it's cut at 50. Like the low cutoff naturally is at 50. So you notice that that rumble is not there, that annoying rumble. If you've ever had that annoying rumble, you know exactly what it means. So keep this in mind. This is something that you get out of higher end microphones, and especially this one, you get a better quality of sound, and you should, because you're paying for it. Now, without any further ado, let's go into the pop filter test, or plosive test, not the pop filter. Well, in a way it is. So plosive test. So this is how I'm going to have these set up. AT2040. A little disappointed with that one. Shure SM7B. Yeah, dampens it. It does have the pop screen on, but supposedly, and not supposedly, they said that they have, and I've seen the inside of the cage, the grill, not a cage. Well, I guess it's kind of like a cage. The grill, and it is kind of insulated, so that's just, that's just the way it is. Now, one last thing, SE Electronics, this one, right here, AT2040. Yeah. Shure SM7B. Yep. So first up, we have the low cutoff on the Shure SM7B. And you notice that, obviously, it's cut off a lot of those low ends, as we spoke about in the frequency response. There's a lot of low end taken out. I get a little bit closer, and you definitely don't hear a lot of that low end. And for my voice, this is cutting into my voice, my tone that I am naturally given from birth. AT2040, and obviously this has more low end, comparatively speaking, to this configuration. And it sounds a little bit better. I gotta admit, it sounds a little bit better in this situation. And if I get a little bit closer and give that proximity effect for you, it doesn't sound that bad. It's like I said, I hear it differently every time. I can't pinpoint it down to how I like it. All right, so the mid boost is on, and wow, it's really loud now. So you're probably noticing a lot more noise and a lot more, because obviously it's cranked up in those sections, like 2 to 5 decibels, well, 2 to 4 decibels. As you saw, it's really emphasized and really gives it a nice presence boost. And I like the presence boost, but for my voice in certain areas, like I could dissect, when you do this for a living and you do it for a while, you could dissect certain sections of a performance, and you can figure out, that's how you EQ. You distinguish what is the thing you want, and you adjust it accordingly. So now switching to the AT2040, and you notice that there is more low end, comparatively speaking. When you switch back and forth, when you compare these microphones, and if you compare any microphone, you really notice the unique features of the tones. All right, so the low cutoff and the mid boost are on the Shure SM7B, and this is what it's going to sound like with them in a booth. And I'm just going to do a quick test because it's getting really hot in here. And this is what you're going to hear. Obviously, if you want more tests, you could always go and check out the other videos, especially the individual video on this one, where I go a little bit overboard with it, but I wanted to cover everything and make sure I had everything so that I don't have to do too crazy of a comparison or test in these other videos. Now, I'm getting out of here. It's effing hot, and I'm done. Untreated room. Here we go. All right, in the untreated room, AT2040, Shure SM7B. No switches engaged. If you're interested in off-axis rejection stuff in the untreated room with the switches, go check the individual video out and go to the chapter for the untreated room. First up, we're going to be doing noise tests and different combinations of fans, ACs, all that stuff. And then we're going to do off-axis rejection. Alright, so this is the mix between my voice and the room naturally, no fans, no nothing. There is an AC going on downstairs, and there are crickets outside. So things you may have to deal with when you're using a microphone in a room that has background noise or something similar to these noises, because the AC is outside and downstairs and the crickets are outside. So try to relate that to anything, any kind of other sounds you may encounter. Now this is the mix between my voice and the ceiling fan and what you may encounter if you do have a ceiling fan on while you're recording your audio. But you guys let me know down in the comments what you think of the off-X rejection with a ceiling fan. We're going to do the AC now. Now this is the mix between my voice and the AC on low. I angled the microphones a little bit better so they're kind of in the sweet spots of rejection, but it's not perfect, so try my best. And this is going to be what it's going to sound like if you're trying to record stuff with a AC on and trying to stay cool, which is very difficult when you're recording audio. Now we're going to crank it a little higher and make it even more annoying. Alright, AC's on high, and I know that I speak a little louder when the AC's on high on these tests, but that's just the way I am. And if you're speaking into a microphone and the AC's on high, you're going to talk louder because you're going to think that you should. Alright, so 2-3 inches away from the microphones, we're going to do a little bit of a distance test and see how they react in the untreated room. This is about 2 feet away from the fronts of the microphones, and this is going to be your off-axis distance test. And there's obviously a lot of stuff in the room, so that is kind of treated, not really treated. It just helps. Stuff in the room really helps with reducing the reflections back. Flat walls, glass, anything flat that reverberates back is bad for audio. So keep that in mind when you're choosing the room and maybe decorating your room. Maybe use some stuff to help the acoustics of the room. Area rug underneath me does a big thing. If you have a carpet, of course, that's great. But area rug above a tile or even a wood floor like this would be very helpful. Alright, 90-degree test. Stage right. Shure SM7B side. This is what it's going to sound like with your off-axis rejection. I'm speaking towards a wall with some glass for the windows and a little bit of drywall. There's one flat wall over there, and you might notice some reflections back. Moving over to the sweet spot, 120 to 150 degrees. This is going to be your off-axis rejection in the untreated room for this sweet spot. And of course, that's the same wall, flat wall over there, glass over there. Let me know what you think and see if there's a difference between a hypercardioid and a cardioid. Next up, 90-degree test on the AT2040 side. Stage left. And now I'm speaking into the opposite side of the room, which has no door. That goes out into the hallway, so maybe some echo back. And let me know if you hear some echo. Now in the sweet spot, 120 to 150 degrees. This is going to be the off-X rejection in the untreated room, and I'm talking, the person speaking is talking to the same wall that I was talking to before. Lastly, 180-degree test between a hypercardioid and a cardioid polar pattern. Let me know if you notice the difference between the rejection. I'm about 2 feet away from the rears of the microphones. Hypercardioids say they have a little bit of pickup on the back, but I noticed this AT2040 is very good in the rear. Poor choice of words, phrasing, I know. Alright, that's it. Let's go down to the studio and recap this video and let you know how I feel, which, if you know me, you know where this is going. And as you may have expected, the Shure SM7B is the winner in this, of course. It's kind of an unfair comparison, but I have to say the AT2040 definitely held its own, and it really was nice to see a lower budget microphone have certain features that could rival a legendary microphone like the Shure SM7B. The bushing that is enforcing the diaphragm and the nice hefty build for a very affordable price is really nice, and if it fits the tone of your voice, fits the tone of whatever you're doing, It's a great option, and I really do recommend it for anyone who feels that it fits their tone and fits their style. So thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed it. If you liked the video, please hit the like button down below. It'd be greatly appreciated. And subscribe for more videos that are coming out in the future. More mic comparisons, a big budget battle coming up between all my budget broadcast microphones. It's going to be a fun comparison, little rating system I got going on. So keep an eye out for that. Probably in a week or so, maybe next week or maybe beginning of the week after. So keep an eye out for that. And if you want to ask me things more directly, I am streaming. If you are watching this live on the day that it's coming out, I might be live in the morning, might be live in early afternoon. Just keep an eye out. I am streaming on that day, so keep an eye out for that. And yeah, that's about it. Until next time, take care, and I'll see you in the next video. There's 21 of them. I'm gonna miss it by one. Oh, shit burger! Shit burger. Oh my god! Go away! Get off my booty! He's trying to eat my booty out like groceries, son of a bitch!